We are going to work on some spelling today. We have some materials for that. We have chalk, and there are some little sponges in here for us as well. And a chalkboard. Now, we don't use chalkboards for everything like we used to. We use whiteboards more often these days. All the big ones in the classroom are whiteboards. All of our students have whiteboards to use, but sometimes it helps to have a more tactile surface experience, a little more friction, to really feel the motion of the letters and get that handwriting part right as well. So we'll use a chalkboard today. As you can see, our chalkboard is pretty dirty. It looks like it was a hasty cleanup job last time. So we'll start with a little spritz of water here. And give it a nice wipe down. And now I'll let that dry a little bit. We want it to be pretty dry before we begin, and you'll see why. Can you see the color change as it dries? A little air movement really helps speed up the evaporation process. We learned about evaporation when we studied materials and their properties. Usually, water requires heat to become a gas in the form of steam, but evaporation is different. Now it's time to prepare our chalk and other materials. Do you hear it? I love the sound of chalk as it writes on a chalkboard, as they clink together, and even as they rattle around in a cardboard box. I'm getting chalk all over my hands, and I probably should not have worn a black sweatshirt today. But imagine back when chalk was used for everything, every day. Chalk dust everywhere. I also have a small cup of water and tiny little sponges. That one's a little dirty. crispy and dry right now. I have some blue and I have some yellow. And I'll use one of these in my writing as well today. What color should I use? I'll mix them up. Close my eyes and choose one. Blue today. Okay, I have my chalkboard, my chalk, my sponge, and a little bit of water. I'm ready to begin. Today we're going to be spelling words that have the long E sound. The long E sound says E. It's like when E says its own name. Say it with me. E. It's not eh, like I didn't hear you, eh? Or eh, elephant, eh, egg. It's not that. That's the short E sound. Today we're thinking about the long E sound that says E. That's right. There are many ways to spell the long E sound in English. We have a very complicated language, especially when it comes to spelling. Today let's focus on one way that we see a lot, very commonly, with two vowels together. Vowels are A, E, I, O, and U. The two vowels that can spell E together today are E, A. There are other ways to do it, but that's the way we'll learn about today. E, A. Have you ever heard that when two vowels go walking together, the first one does the talking? Two vowels go walking, the first one does the talking. There are very few rules in English that always apply, so of course that rule does not always apply, but most of the time. And with E and A, when they are together, we mostly hear the sound that E makes. Today, E is going to be making the E sound together with A. Let's write E-A. I have my chalk. Say them with me. E-A. E and A together are saying what sound? E. They're saying E. I can use these two letters together in a word to make the sound E. How about if I add another letter here? That's the letter T. It says T. We have the sound E. T. Eat. What have we spelled? What's the word? The word is eat. Eat. Let's see if we can add to this and change it into a new word. I think I can add a letter here. There are many sounds that would turn this into a different word. The sound H, the sound N, the sound M. Can you think of any others? How about the sound S? There are many sounds that could make a new word. I think I would like to write the sound H. How do you spell the sound H? We spell it with an H. Let's write it. The beginning sound goes on the beginning of the word, so I'll write it right here. I've changed the word. Before, the word said eat. Now, I have eat. Eat. Heat. What is the word? Heat. winter time, it feels very cozy to sit by a fire or something else warm that provides heat. That's right, heat. Now, we're going to use some of the other parts of our setup today. Now that we have the word seat written the correct way, it's time for me to pass this to a kiddo like you. And you get to practice writing it the correct way using the wet, dry, dry method. Here's how that works. First, wet your sponge. And you want to wring out as much water as you can. Give it a good squeeze. We don't want a big mess on here, and we want this to dry pretty easily, so we don't want this to turn into a lake or puddles. Now, we use the letters that are already there the correct way to try spelling it with a wet sponge. Seat. S-E. Seat. Can you still see it there? Yeah, you can still see the wet writing. Now that's wet. Next comes dry. Next, I take a little bit of paper towel, just enough for my fingers, and write the word to dry it. Seat. And you can still see it there a little bit. That supports me in the dry part. I don't have to remember it perfectly yet. I still have a helper there to remember how to do it. This is why this works so well with a chalkboard, and we don't need a whiteboard, which erases very efficiently. We like the residue left over by a chalkboard. Now my turn to dry. I did wet, dry, and now dry. Seat. E. Seat. This is how we do it. Let's spell another word with E in the middle. E spelled with E-A together. E. Oh, I could also turn over to the other side and keep flipping it when they're drying. I'm going to put E back on my board and then build a word. E. Today we're spelling E with E-A. E-A spells E. That's right. Now I'm going to spell one of my favorite words. One of my favorite things to do is read. I hope you like to read as well. Read has that E sound spelled with E-A. What are all the sounds in read? Let's go sound by sound. Read. E, D. Read. 3 sounds. The middle one has 2 letters, E-A. First sound, R. R is spelled with the letter R. E, D. D. D is spelled with the letter D. I have to be careful that I don't write a B, because a B looks very similar to a D, but it's flipped over. One way, there are many, one way to remember the difference between a lowercase d and a lowercase b is that D comes after C. So if I say the ABCs, A, B, C, D. When I start writing a D, I've start with the letter C, which comes right before it. That's not the case with B. B starts with a straight line down. What word did we write? We wrote read. 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 Now it's time for wet, dry, try. Get my sponge wet. Squeeze out the water so it's just damp. And now I can go right over these letters. D. Read. Take my little paper towel. Read. Wet, dry, and try. Oops, my A got a little light there. Read. Read. Now, there is a trick about this word. This word is the exact same spelling as read. Like, I already read that book. I will read. I do read. I already have read in the past. That is the tricky thing about languages and the tricky thing about English. There are always ways to break the rules. Sometimes EA says eh, but it is still the E talking, isn't it? When two vowels go walking, the first one usually does the talking. So E is saying E, or sometimes E is saying eh when these two are together. Let's do another word. Our next word is near. Say near. What are the sounds in near? N, E, R, near. 3 sounds. N, E, R. That middle sound has 2 letters that spell E, E-A, near. Okay, I'm going to write the word near. First, I'll write the first sound. The first sound is N. N. We spell N with an N, like Nelson, Miss Nelson. Now we're on to the next sound. N, E. How do we spell that E sound in near? E-A. N, E, R. Third sound, R. We spell the R sound with R. Here we are, near. N, E, R, near. All right, it's time for wet, dry, dry. Wet, near. N, E, R, near. Dry. N, E, R, near. And try it again. N, E, R, near. There are lots of things that happen in the world outside of our classroom that might take our attention away, but we can bring it right back to our learning. We just wrote a word. What word did we write? We wrote near. Near. I like to be near to the ones I love. I'll let that finish drying while I think of our next word. What's another word where we hear E, and it's usually EA in the center of a word? Sometimes it's at the end of a word, like in the word sea. I like to go to the ocean or to the sea. Sometimes it's in the beginning of a word, like eat or easy. But most of the time, it's in the middle of a word, between two other sounds. Let's do clean. I like the word clean. It's nice to be in a clean space that's organized and not too dirty for me to use and enjoy. Clean. Repeat after me. Clean. Clean. What are the sounds? K, O, E, N. Clean. Oh, how many sounds this time? 4 sounds. K, O, E. That's our sound with 2 letters. N. Clean. First sound. K. K, O. Second sound. O. E. We're getting good at this one, aren't we? How do we spell that E sound? E-A says E. E. A spells E. K, O, E, N. We've written the word clean. It's time for wet, dry, try. I have my sponge. Here I go. O, E. Whoops, I kind of missed A. E. Clean. I'll get my little fingertip paper towel. Clean. K, O, E. Clean. And now, try it. K, O, E. Clean. There's the word clean. It's time to clean this word off. I'll give it a little spray. And a wipe. The last word we'll practice today with the E sound spelled with E-A is reach. Repeat after me. Reach. Reach. Let's do the sounds. R-E-Ch. Reach. 3 sounds. That middle sound is E with 2 letters. Do you hear the word each inside of reach? If you can spell reach, you could also spell each. Here we go. Let's write the word reach. I've done a lot of words with the letter R today. R is one of the most common letters in the English language. R-E-Ch. First sound, R. R. Second sound, R-E. let's not forget we're using 2 letters to spell that. E-A says E. E-Ch. Now, did you know that ch is not a single letter sound? Ch is the sound that 2 letters make together. C-H. Ch. C-H. Ch. E-Ch. Reach. Reach. We were the word reach. It's time for a wet, dry, try. I have my sponge. I'll spell the word the wet way. E-Ch. And now the dry way. And finally, the try. Reach. 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 Sometimes I wish I could reach out and give you a high five, or a handshake, or even a hug. Thank you for working on spelling with me today. Even though we may have to reach a little further to one another, we are all connected. So be good to one another.